Imagine a home where every room had its own set of heavy drapes just to stay warm, and a small door built into the wall waited for the milkman before sunrise. Today, we take a look at 15 home features from the 1950s that every house had, and what happened to them. The formal living room, sometimes still called the parlor, was a fixture of nearly every home built through the 1950s. It was the room closest to the front door, furnished with the family's best sofa, chairs, and usually a display cabinet of fine china. Children were generally not allowed to play in it. The room was reserved almost exclusively for receiving guests, hosting holidays, and important family events like funerals and weddings. The furniture was often covered in clear plastic slipcovers to keep the upholstery spotless between visits. Because the room sat unused most of the week, it represented a significant amount of wasted square footage in the house. As open floor plans became popular in the 1970s and 1980s, the formal living room was gradually absorbed into the larger family room concept, and new construction stopped including it as a separate space altogether. In the 1920s and 1930s, as the telephone became a standard household fixture, builders began incorporating a small, recessed alcove into the hallway wall, specifically to hold the phone. These niches, sometimes called telephone nooks, typically featured a narrow shelf for the heavy rotary phone, a smaller shelf underneath for the phone book, and occasionally a built-in wooden seat or bench. Because early telephones were wired to a single location and could not be moved, the nook gave the device a permanent, tidy home. Some families ordered prefabricated phone cabinets from the Sears catalog and installed them beside the stairs. By the 1950s, the majority of American households had at least one telephone, and the nook was considered a standard feature. As cordless phones arrived in the 1980s and cell phones followed in the 1990s, the need to anchor a phone to one spot in the wall disappeared entirely. Today, surviving phone nooks are often repurposed as small shelves for keys, mail, or houseplants. Before central air conditioning became affordable for middle-class families, homes relied on a combination of design and natural airflow to manage the heat. Transom windows were a key part of that system. These small, hinged windows sat above interior doors and could be opened or closed using a long metal rod called a transom operator. When opened, they allowed hot air to rise and circulate between rooms and into the hallway, creating a cross draft that pulled cooler air through the lower parts of the house. They also let natural light pass deeper into the interior without sacrificing privacy, since they sat well above eye level. Transom windows were common in homes built from the late 1800s through the 1950s. As mechanical air conditioning spread through American homes in the 1960s and 1970s, the practical need for transom windows vanished, and builders stopped including them in new construction. Laundry chutes were a beloved feature of two-story homes built from the early 1900s through the 1950s. The concept was simple. A vertical shaft, usually lined with sheet metal, ran from an opening on the upper floor down to a bin or basket in the basement laundry area. Dirty clothes and linens were dropped through a small door in the hallway or bathroom wall and fell directly to where they needed to be washed. For large families, the chute saved dozens of trips up and down the stairs each week. The chute's decline began in the mid-1960s when rising construction costs led builders to cut out extras. A deadly fire at Hartford Hospital in 1961, caused by smoldering cigarette ashes in a laundry chute, led to much stricter fire codes for vertical shafts in buildings. As washers and dryers migrated from the basement to dedicated rooms on the main floor or upper level, the laundry chute lost its purpose. If you walked through a 1950s home, nearly every room would have the same flooring, gleaming hardwood, covered almost entirely by large area rugs or fitted wall-to-wall carpeting. But beneath the windows in the living room and bedrooms, you would likely find heavy floor-length drapes, often lined with a thick backing, to block drafts in winter and sun in summer. These drapes were not just decorative. In an era when many homes still lacked adequate insulation and storm windows, the drapes served as a genuine thermal barrier against the cold. Homes built in the 1940s and 1950s frequently had single-pane windows, and the heavy fabric helped trap a layer of still air between the glass and the room. As double-pane windows, improved insulation, and central heating became standard, the functional need for heavy drapes faded, and lighter curtains or bare windows became the norm. In the 1920s through the 1950s, nearly every home included a shallow cabinet built into the kitchen wall or a central hallway that concealed a fold-down ironing board. A small leg would drop to support the weight when the board was pulled open, and the cabinet often included a shelf for the iron and a can of starch. Some models featured a heat-resistant metal plate to rest the hot iron on. The design was a practical acknowledgement that ironing was a daily chore. Dress shirts, cotton bed sheets, tablecloths, and even handkerchiefs all required pressing. Ironing was a constant, never-ending task. As permanent press fabrics became widely available in the 1960s and everyday clothing grew less formal, the amount of ironing in the average household declined sharply. Homes built after the 1970s rarely included the built-in board, and many surviving cabinets have since been painted shut or converted into spice racks. One of the most charming relics of early 20th century home design is the milk door. These were small, insulated compartments built into the exterior wall of homes, common from the early 1900s through the 1960s. The compartment had two doors, one on the outside for the milkman and one on the inside for the homeowner. Before dawn, the milkman would open the exterior door, place glass bottles of fresh milk inside, and collect the empty bottles left from the previous delivery. The family could retrieve the milk from inside the house without ever stepping outside. The two-door design kept the milk safe from animals, weather, and theft. Milk delivery remained a regular service in most American neighborhoods through the 1950s. As suburban sprawl made delivery routes longer and more expensive, and as supermarkets offered cheaper milk that families could store in their own refrigerators, daily delivery gradually faded. Today, the small metal or wooden doors are still visible on the exterior walls of many older homes, often painted over or sealed shut. Before built-in closets became a standard feature of American home construction, most bedrooms were furnished with large freestanding wardrobes or armoires. These massive pieces of furniture, often made of oak, walnut, or cedar, served as the primary storage for clothing, shoes, and linens. A typical wardrobe featured a hanging rod on one side, a stack of drawers or shelves on the other, and sometimes a mirror mounted on the inside of the door. Cedar-lined wardrobes were especially prized because the natural oils in the wood repelled moths and kept stored woolens safe through the summer months. The smell of a cedar wardrobe is something many older Americans still associate with their grandparents' homes. As post-war builders began including dedicated bedroom closets as a standard feature in the 1950s and 1960s, the freestanding wardrobe lost its practical role, and these heavy pieces of furniture gradually moved from the bedroom to the attic or the antique shop. In the 1950s and 1960s, as post-war suburban houses grew in square footage, builders began installing hardwired intercom systems to help families communicate from room to room. The typical system consisted of a master station in the kitchen and smaller speaker units mounted on the wall in each bedroom, the living room, and sometimes the front porch. A mother could press a button and announce that dinner was ready, check on a child in a distant bedroom, or screen a visitor at the front door. Many systems also included a built-in AM/FM radio that could broadcast music through every speaker in the house simultaneously. The intercom was considered a mark of a modern, well-equipped home. As portable phones, baby monitors, and eventually smartphones made room-to-room communication effortless, the wired intercom became obsolete. Today, old intercom panels are still bolted to the walls of many 1960s-era homes, usually painted over and no longer functional. Long before electric dryers became a household staple, the clothesline was the only way to dry laundry. In the 1950s, nearly every home had one in the backyard, either a simple rope strung between two wooden poles or a rotating umbrella-style frame stuck in the ground. Wooden or spring-loaded clothespins held everything from bed sheets to work shirts, and the laundry flapped in the wind until it was dry and stiff with fresh air. Mondays were traditionally wash day in many households, and by mid-morning the backyard would be full of hanging fabric. Electric dryers existed by the 1950s, but they were expensive and not yet standard in most homes. As dryers became affordable through the 1960s and 1970s, the clothesline gradually disappeared from American backyards. Some neighborhoods and homeowners associations eventually banned them outright, viewing them as unsightly. Distinct from the television that would soon replace it, the console radio was the centerpiece of the American living room through the 1940s and into the early 1950s. It was a large, floor-standing piece of furniture, often made of polished walnut or mahogany, with a fabric-covered speaker grill and a warm, glowing dial. Families arranged their chairs and sofa around it the same way they would later arrange around the television set. Evening programming included dramas, comedies, news broadcasts, mystery serials, and variety shows that captivated entire households. The console radio was not just an appliance, it was as prominent as the fireplace. By the mid-1950s, television sets were rapidly replacing the radio as the center of family entertainment, and the large console was pushed to the corner, then the basement, then out of the house altogether. If you looked at the foundation of a home built before 1940, you would likely find a small cast iron door set into the wall at ground level. This was the coal chute. Before natural gas and oil became the dominant heating fuels, most homes burned coal in a basement furnace. A delivery truck would pull up to the house, and the coal man would shovel hundreds of pounds of coal through the small door and down a metal slide into a storage room in the basement. The coal room itself often had walls permanently stained black from decades of use. Homeowners shoveled the coal from the storage room into the furnace by hand, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day during the coldest winter months. As oil and gas furnaces replaced coal through the 1950s and 1960s, the coal chute became unnecessary. Today, the small iron doors are still visible on the foundations of many older homes, usually rusted shut and painted over. By the 1950s, no self-respecting home was complete without a formal dining room. It was a dedicated room, separate from the kitchen, furnished with a large table, matching chairs, a sideboard or buffet for serving, and often a glass front china cabinet displaying the family's best dinnerware and crystal. Sunday dinner was served in this room. Holiday meals were carved at this table. Guests were entertained here with the good silver and the linen tablecloths. The room was rarely used for casual weeknight meals. Those were eaten in the kitchen or at a smaller breakfast nook. As American lifestyles became more informal through the 1970s, and open floor plans merged the kitchen, dining, and living areas into a single great room, the dedicated formal dining room began to disappear from new home construction. In the late 1950s through the 1970s, popcorn ceilings were applied to nearly every new home built in America. The textured finish, also called acoustic or cottage cheese ceiling, was created by spraying a mixture of paint and small aggregate particles onto the ceiling surface, producing a bumpy, stippled look. Builders favored the technique because it was fast, cheap, and required no sanding or additional finish work. Homeowners appreciated that it hid imperfections in the drywall joints and provided minor sound dampening between floors. However, many early formulations of the spray contained asbestos fibers, which posed serious health risks when disturbed or scraped. After asbestos was banned from ceiling products in 1978, the material formulation changed, but the style had already fallen out of fashion. Today, removing popcorn ceilings is one of the most common renovation projects in older American homes. The basement in a 1950s home was not a finished living space. It was a working utility area with a concrete floor, exposed pipes overhead, and a dedicated room for the furnace. Many basements also contained a root cellar or cold storage room, partitioned off with thick walls and a heavy door to maintain cool, stable temperatures for storing canned goods, preserves, and root vegetables through the winter. The floor was often left as packed dirt to regulate humidity levels. Wooden shelves lined the walls, stacked with mason jars of tomatoes, pickles, green beans, and fruit preserves put up during the harvest season. The smell was distinctive damp earth, cool air, and the faint sweetness of stored produce. As supermarkets made fresh food available year-round and home freezers became affordable, the need to store hundreds of pounds of food in the basement disappeared, and most root cellars were converted into general storage or workshop space. So which of these 1950s home features do you wish would make a comeback? The laundry chute, the milk door, or maybe the clothesline on a warm summer morning? Drop a comment below to tell us your pick. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and watch the next one right here. And remember to like and subscribe. It really helps a small channel.